Ranger rookie camp is underway. What are the biggest takeaways from the first two sessions? And what do we know about recent Ranger PTO signee, Adam Erne?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1138 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your post at Indeed.com/LockedOn. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So a lot to do here today. First and foremost, going to be starting with Ranger rookie camp that is officially underway. The Ranger rookies that are in camp have practiced each of the last two games. And tonight, Friday night, we've got the first of two games between the Ranger rookies and the Flyer rookies. They're going to play tonight and also tomorrow. Tonight at 7 p.m., tomorrow at 5 p.m. But as for, the Rangers only sessions that they've had, they were at the MSG Training Center. A lot going on there, obviously, and we're not going to get to every single player and every single little thing that happened during these practices, but we will get to some of the better stuff, some of the more eye-opening stuff, and I want to start with a guy that obviously is sort of the next Ranger prospect that's in line to become a member of the New York Rangers full-time and make an impact in the NHL, and that, of course, be Brandon Othmann. This is actually the fourth rookie camp that Brandon Othmann is participating in with the New York Rangers. And I think a lot of us Ranger fans probably hope and expect that this will very likely be his last, because I think sooner or later, maybe not on opening night or maybe on opening night, but one way or another, Brandon Othmann is going to get some run with the Rangers this upcoming season. And I think at that point, by next offseason, he will have graduated from Ranger rookie camp. But, there was a lot of buzz going on with Othmann, for everything that he was doing at these practices. There was a video posted by Molly Walker where you could see Othmann beating what looked to be Hugo Olas, one of the Ranger, prospect goalies, beat him on a snapshot. Olas was then able to stop Othmann on a redirection attempt. But, there are a couple of videos being posted of these different players being interviewed after the practices. And this is one thing that Othmann said it about taking on a leadership role at the rookie camp. I'm excited to take on that role. I was able to be a leader in junior. I enjoy being a leader. I enjoy helping guys out and guys asking questions about the facility. And Othmann was also asked about last season. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of you remember he was up, but just for 3 games with the Rangers last year. That seemed like it was always the plan. I don't know if 3 was the exact number, but they knew what they were doing. They were going to call Othmann up for a short time, then send him back down to the AHL. But he was asked about, getting that taste of NHL experience and, getting to play as a member of the New York Rangers. This is what he had to say about that. I think knowing that I can do it, being able to play at that level, that pace, knowing that I can play at that capacity, I think, play with the players there, I can handle myself. And Othmann also mentioned that this offseason, he bulked up from 186 pounds to 192 pounds. He mentioned that's a new career high, I guess we can call it, as far as, his weight. And he said the end goal is to try to make the team and be there opening night. Right now, focusing on practices and the games against the Philadelphia rookies. Then he went on to say also that he's counting down the hours and minutes until those games. And it's right upon us here. It's about 2 p.m. as I'm recording this episode on Friday afternoon. And like I said, the puck drops for that first rookie game tonight at 7. While we're talking about it, might as well just mention this now. It does look like not the Rangers, but the Flyers, they're going to go ahead and stream both of those rookie games. So if you're interested in watching them, go to the Flyers official website. I was there just before I hit record. I don't see a link or anything yet, but it's possible they're still setting that up, and that'll be available a little bit later tonight. But either way, definitely looking forward to watching both of those games over the next 2 days here. Yeah, Adam Edstrom, speaking of Rangers that got some run with the team last year, I believe it was 11 games for Edstrom with the Blue Shirts last season. Thought this was kind of interesting. A couple of videos surfaced of this. He was getting some work in, as a net front presence. He was setting up screens and looking for some redirections. I noticed, again, Hugo Olas made a save with his mask on one of Edstrom's redirection attempts. But, I like this. I think that with somebody like Adam Edstrom, when you've got somebody as big as that, and I mean, keep in mind, this is just rookie camp. They're seeing what everybody can do and what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and how far along is this guy? Is Adam Edstrom going to make the team? All those kinds of questions. But when you've got somebody that's as big and as immovable as Adam Edstrom, I love this. You have to at least give it a shot. Can this guy handle himself in front of the net? I think specifically, on power plays, not that like Edstrom's going to be on the Ranger top power play unit to start the year. He's not. But could this be an option somewhere down the road? If Adam Edstrom makes the team, is this something that we even consider right off the bat? Do we play him on the second power play unit and let him try this? I don't think they would do something that bold, but it makes sense to give this a shot and see if Adam Edstrom can handle himself in such a role. When you've got somebody who's 6'7" and I think like 235 pounds, whatever he is, and he's in front of the net, and he doesn't want to be moved, very, very difficult to move him out of there. So I love that they're at least trying this, and we'll see if Edstrom is given an opportunity to do that, in these 2 rookie games and into the preseason as well. This was cool too. One of the more wholesome moments, I guess we can call this, from the 2 days here. This is another tweet that came to us from Molly Walker, but she mentioned that Dylan Garand told them a story from what happened during the one game last year that he was a member of the Rangers. If you guys remember, there was a very brief overlap. In fact, I think it was just one game where Quick and Igor were both injured and unavailable at the same time. So Louis Domingue and Dylan Garand were both up. Louis Domingue started that game, played very well, got the win for the Rangers. Garand was there as the backup. But apparently he was out there for the Rangers during, warm-ups, obviously, and he was out near the red line. And this is how Dylan Garand explained it. He said, Marc-Andre Fleury came out, skated up to me, said hi, and skated away. And then he said, it was so cool at first. I was like, holy smokes. So that's a pretty funny reaction there from Dylan Garand. Was it Matt Rempe? Matt Rempe last year, what did he say when he got excited about something during a post-game interview? And I think he said something like Jiminy Jellikers or something. Or no, Jiminy Crickets. That's what he said. Jiminy Jellikers is from The Simpsons. But if you know, you know. But yeah, no, that is funny, seeing these wide-eyed rookies react in such a way and breaking out kind of some old school verbiage here. Jiminy Crickets, holy smokes. I don't know, maybe Dylan Garand and Matt Rempe have been hanging out a little bit and coming up with these phrases. But regardless, back to Adam Edstrom here. He was also asked about his experience with the Rangers last year. And again, I have it in my notes here. It was indeed 11 games. So what he had to say about it. It was great. I mean, it's a childhood dream playing in the NHL, just getting out there, packed MSG. It was a special feeling. I really want to get back, so I'm excited. And yeah, he'll have every opportunity. I still think when the final roster drops to start the season on opening night, you could see Edstrom start the season with the AHL. There's part of me, as I've mentioned in the past, I would like to see Matt Rempe start in the AHL because I think that's where he can really hone his craft by getting a lot more ice time. And obviously the competition is a little bit lesser down there, or quite a bit lesser if we're being honest. But yeah, Edstrom, I'm sure has every intention of making this team, and we'll see if he's able to pull it off. Apparently, this came to us from a tweet from Vince Mercogliano. The Rangers' de facto first line at the first of the 2 practices at this rookie camp was Brett Berard, Ryder Korzak, and Brandon Othmann. And that was kind of interesting to me. We've talked about Berard and Othmann quite a bit. These are the 2 guys that probably as much as any Ranger prospect have a real shot of making that opening night roster. I don't think they'll both be there, but I can certainly see at least one of them squeezing their way onto the roster. But Ryder Korzak's kind of an interesting one. We haven't talked about him quite as much. 5'11", 172 pounds, drafted by the Rangers in 2021 during the 3rd round at number 75 overall. He is listed as a center and is now 21 years old. 2 years ago, he played in 5 games with the Wolfpack, and then this past year was his first, real full traditional season as a member of the Hartford Wolfpack. 9 goals and 11 assists to go along with a -4 in 67 games. Also had a goal and an assist in 10 playoff games. He, though, before he got to Hartford, he played with the Moose Jaw Warriors, was well over a point per game during his 4 years combined there. And his final season there was in 2022, 2023, skated in 48 games, scored 28 goals, and had 41 assists. So that's obviously a tremendously impressive season there, final season for him with the Moose Jaw Warriors. And we'll see, how it goes. He's somebody else that, I don't know. It seems like he's a little bit under the radar, at least compared to some of these other prospects. But if the Rangers need a call-up, maybe his name at least gets kicked around and there is some discussion there. And obviously he can help his own cause by how he performs in these 2 rookie games here and the training camp as a whole, the rookie camp. This is also kind of a fun stat, once again, coming to us from Vince Mercogliano on Twitter. He mentioned that there were 15 players on the ice for the Rangers at this rookie camp here who were 6'2" or taller, and 8 of them were 6'4" or taller. So if you're in the camp of the Rangers getting bigger and tougher and all that stuff, you got to like hearing something like that. I also mentioned just a couple of episodes ago the idea that probably not this season, but maybe as soon as the following season, if Dylan Rubrick can make it to the NHL, in theory, that could be the Ranger fourth line. You get a trio of 6'7" forwards. You got Rubrick centering potentially Adam Edstrom and Matt Rempe. That could be a lot of fun. But apparently, at one of these practices, they had a line of Rubrick, Edstrom, and also Yaroslav Hemler. And Hemler's not a small player either, not by a long shot. He is 6'4", so that's obviously a very tall, very imposing line. And 2/3 of the players that I mentioned, sans Matt Rempe, those guys were playing together during this camp. So that's cool to see as well. I also found this interesting. There was an article from Dane Walsh of Forever Blue Shirt, so I want to definitely give credit there. He mentioned that Bryce McConnell-Barker, in his article, said that his goal is to make the Rangers out of training camp. McConnell-Barker is a guy that had a strong season last year, had a good playoff run, I believe, in the OHL, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of rookies to keep track of here. But he's only 20 years old, and he only last year ended up playing 4 games with the Hartford Wolfpack. They were all playoff games. So for his goal to be to make the New York Rangers, I think that's awesome. I don't think it's very realistic, if we're being honest on here, but that should be the mindset for a young player like that. There's nothing that says like, well, you have to play such and such amount of games and such amount of seasons in the AHL. You were only taking the 3rd round, so we're not going to take you seriously. No, everybody should be given an opportunity. I don't think that's going to happen, but for him to have that mindset that that's the goal and he wants to work toward it and he's going to do everything he can to at least give the Rangers something to think about, I think that's awesome to hear. Very cool. Also of note at this rookie camp is that Marc Staal was on the ice. Staal recently retired at the age of 37. He was out there, skates and everything. We are going to do a career retrospective. There we go. On Marc Staal in just a minute here. But he has now joined the Rangers as an assistant player development coach. And given the fact that he did just retire, I think it's only fitting that we go ahead and we, do a career retrospective on Marc Staal. And we will do that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home those huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, we just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And we also want to encourage everybody to check out the Locked On NHL podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day, with national experts and local insight on every team in the league, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And for the everydayers, you guys are definitely going to want to stick around. We're going to be doing everything we can to get everybody hyped for the start of the preseason, the regular season. Going to continue with our best and worst of scenarios for every player on the Rangers, soon moving to the defenseman. And obviously, we're going to keep our eye on everything that happens in these 2 games between the Ranger rookies and the Flyer rookies. Very excited that we're all going to be able to watch that a little bit later here tonight. But I wanted to shift our attention to Marc Staal, the recently retired Marc Staal at the age of 37. It's kind of hard to know where to begin because he played 13 seasons with the Rangers, 17 seasons overall in the NHL, was part of a lot of winning with the Rangers, a trip to the Stanley Cup final in 2014, and, just a solid all-around player. He was a first-round pick to take it all the way back from the start. First-round pick by the Rangers in 2005, went number 12 overall. And in case you're wondering just how long ago this truly was, for some context here, this was the year that Sidney Crosby went number 1 overall and Carey Price went number 5 overall. So it's definitely been a minute, since Marc Staal was drafted into this league. But It's interesting. We've seen the Rangers really kind of over the years, very hit or miss in the first round as far as their selections are concerned. And even that might be being a little bit generous. They've made some good picks. There's no doubt about it. And Marc Staal was one of them. But for every Marc Staal or Chris Kreider or, even somebody like Keandre Miller in recent years, you get yourself a Vitaly Kravtsov or Elias Anderson and a whole bunch of other names that I don't even really feel like mentioning right now. But for the most part, Staal, I do think him going in the first round of the Rangers, you still have to call him an absolute success story for the Rangers. The simple fact that he was here for 13 years alone tells you that obviously he was doing something right. I don't know that he ever truly became like the superstar that the Rangers thought they were getting. I mean, the hype for Marc Staal, it was up there. As far as like hype around draft picks for the Rangers, a few years ago, obviously Lafreniere went number 1 overall. The year before that, Capo Caco went number 2 overall. But that's, the first and second pick. There was hype around Kreider too. Kreider was obviously having a very successful college career and then kind of burst onto the scene in the middle of the playoffs with the Rangers. But yeah, Staal, there was a ton of buzz. Everybody thought this guy was going to be like a do-it-all, just bona fide superstar defenseman. Can't really go that far as his career levels, what he ever reached, but he was, tough as nails, blue-collar, hardworking defenseman. I think that's for sure. Maybe a little bit less offense from Marc Staal than a lot of us were kind of promised when everybody was hyping him up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you look at what he did, he is at or near the top of a lot of different, very impressive categories as far as the history of the New York Rangers. He played, again, 17 years in the league, first 13 of which were all with the Rangers. 892 career regular season games for Marc Staal. That is 6th in Ranger history behind only these 5 players. And this goes from most games ever played to fewer games played. But Harry Howell leads the way with 1160. Brian Leetch, 1129. Rod Gilbert, 1065. Ron Greshner with 981. And Walt Kachuk with 945. So Staal is also, by the way, 2nd in Ranger history in block shots with 1162. He trails only his fellow member of the block shot factory. That would be Dan Girardi with 1,691. Marc Staal also played in 107 career Stanley Cup playoff games as a member of the Rangers. That was 3rd among Ranger skaters, only to Chris Kreider with 123 and Dan Girardi with 122. So, yeah, Kreider actually just passed Girardi this past run for the most all-time. But, yeah, very impressive. Again, you got to certainly respect the longevity and the toughness with which he played. And his career was not one that did not have adversity. Back in 2011, he took an absolutely just savage hit from his own brother, Eric, of all people, in a game between the Rangers and the Canes. Now, this was a clean hit. I think they took a look at it, did the league. There was nothing dirty about it. It was basically shoulder to chest. But that didn't really help Mark as it pertained to, the ramifications of this hit. He missed a good chunk of the 2011-2012 season because of this hit. He did not debut that season. It happened in 2021, the 2010-2021 season. That's when the hit occurred. But then in 2011-2012, that's when he ended up missing some time. Did not debut that season until January 2nd, which incidentally was the Winter Classic game against the Flyers. And the year after that, he played only 21 games. But then he was back to being an Iron Man. Marc Staal did not miss a lot of games. For his last 7 seasons as a member of the Rangers, he played between 72 and 80 games in all but one of those 7 seasons. And the only one that he didn't was the 2019-2020 season. That was the pandemic-shortened season. He played 52 of 70 games that year, and that also turned out to be his final season as a member of the New York Rangers. But, again, you look at the career stats, and again, 892 games with the Rangers. Total number of games played in the regular season for Marc Staal, 1,136. And then, of course, obviously, after he's with the Rangers for 13 years, 2 with Detroit, 1 with Florida, and then this past season with Philadelphia, 53 goals, 181 assists, 234 points, 1,448 block shots, 1,643 hits. So the guy went out there, sacrificed his body, played some blue-collar hockey for the Rangers, and then even with those other teams, once he was eventually traded by the Rangers to Detroit. And it was kind of sad to see it end that way because the Rangers were trying to rebuild, and they just basically won the Staal contract off their hands, and so they sent him to Detroit. Detroit was not contending at all that year. They sent him along with a second-round pick, as the sweetener to essentially, just wash their hands of the Marc Staal contract. But then again, 128 playoff games, 7 goals, 13 assists. Never got to win a Stanley Cup. As I mentioned, though, was a member of that 2014 Eastern Conference champion Ranger team, and then 9 years later goes back to the Stanley Cup final for the second time as a member of the Florida Panthers. Unfortunately for Staal, though, he left the Panthers 1 year too early. I don't know if like they wanted him back or he just wanted to go somewhere else, but he obviously left the Panthers after 1 year there, went to the Flyers instead, missed the playoffs, and then had to watch as the Panthers ultimately won the Stanley Cup this past season. One-time All-Star in 2011 as a member of the Rangers. And to me, again, so many seasons, so many games with Marc Staal as a member of the Rangers. It's hard to pinpoint just like one moment, but I think I got to go. A lot of times you're looking career retrospectives. Okay, what was this guy's biggest moment? Your attention is going to naturally go to the playoffs. And the one that immediately popped into my head was Game 5, Round 2 against the Capitals in 2012. The series was tied at 2 games apiece. Game 5 is in Madison Square Garden. And Staal ends up scoring the game-winning goal in the overtime period, early into the overtime. Staal also had an assist in this game on a goal scored by Anton Strawman. The Rangers, though, were down 2-1 late in this game, and then Brad Richards scored with 8 seconds to go on just a wild scramble. The Rangers had Lundqvist pulled and everything, and they tied it to send it into the overtime, and that set the stage for Marc Staal. But basically, you get a power play for the Rangers early in the overtime. You got an offensive zone face-off coming for the Rangers, and there's 24 seconds left on the power play. We're only about a minute 30 into overtime at this point, too. So Staal sending everybody home a little bit early because you never know when you're going to get a marathon playoff overtime goal. But you had John Mitchell winning a faceoff for the Rangers. He really had to battle for this puck here, did a great job, ended up kind of kicking it back to Marc Staal. Staal's on the right side. He's in the corner. He moves over to the center of the ice. He basically unleashes a quick slap shot, and scores. It deflected off of a Capital defender and went past Holtby and into the net. That gave the Rangers a 3-2 lead. They lose Game 6 on the road, 2-1. They go back home for Game 7, and they win 2-1 to advance to the conference final, which unfortunately they lost to the Devils, but that's neither here nor there. Obviously, just a huge moment for Marc Staal coming through big time in the clutch for the Rangers when, they obviously really needed a goal. You didn't want to go back on the road facing elimination against the Caps. But, yeah, it is kind of sad seeing all these guys from, and I've talked about this before because we've been doing a lot of these lately, these career retrospective segments on former Rangers and specifically guys that were there in 2014. They're a lot of guys are hanging them up the last, year or 2 or 3 here. It's funny. I must have missed this, but apparently Derek Brassard officially announced his retirement in June. He was out of hockey for this past year, so obviously you can understand why he did that. I'm going to have to do a segment on Brassard in the future because he is one of my all-time favorite Rangers. I just happen to miss his retirement announcement. But yeah, you look at the 2014 team, and now with Marc Staal hanging them up, these are the only guys left. Only a handful of players from that 2014 team that are still playing NHL hockey. You got Kreider, obviously, and he's still a member of the Rangers. Matt Zuccarello still going strong. Ryan McDonagh, now he's back on the Lightning. JT Miller, emerging into a superstar. Cam Talbot, he's still kicking around. Jesper Foss in 2014 only played 11 games with the Rangers, but that still counts, and he's obviously been a very effective player for both the Rangers and the Canes over the years. I guess we can sort of technically count Dylan McIlrath. He only played 2 games in 2014 with the Rangers, and then last year only played 3 games at the NHL level, all with the Washington Capitals. So I guess we can count him. Anton Strawman is still playing hockey, but he's in the SHL, so I mean, we've barely got enough to make a starting lineup here. We can go with, if we're going to do a starting lineup, we can go Kreider, Miller, and Zuccarello. That's solid. That's a solid trio of forwards right there. You've got Ryan McDonagh on defense, and I suppose, Jesper Foss has to make this team over, somebody like Dylan McIlrath, I think for sure. So we'll move Foss to defense. We'll put Foss on defense. Foss and McDonagh kind of hold it down for us on the back end there. And then obviously Cam Talbot can start in net. We got the veteran goalie at this point. But yeah, it's crazy. It's and the other kind of thing that's like really bittersweet about this is most of these players did not go on to then win a Stanley Cup anywhere else that were on that 2014 team. The only Ranger on the 2014 team that won a Stanley Cup, to my knowledge, unless I'm forgetting somebody, that won a Stanley Cup with somebody else, not previously, but after the 2014 run to the finals, was Carl Hagelin. And obviously Marc Staal got close with the Panthers, got back to the finals, but did not get to lift the Stanley Cup, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, obviously just a pillar of this Ranger team for a long time, more than a decade, almost a decade and a half. big time part of the defense core, always in a top 4 role for a lot of those Ranger teams that were making deep runs and, of course, making it to the final in 2014. So all the best to Marc Staal in his retirement, and very cool to see him, immediately after he signs his retirement papers, jump on as a member of the Ranger coaching staff and obviously helping with this rookie camp as well. So going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I want to shift our attention to Adam Erne. He signs a PTO with the New York Rangers, and we will discuss him and what we know about him in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. We are driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed data survey. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our shows by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Figure we can close out today's episode by talking a little bit about Adam Erne, who signed a PTO with the New York Rangers. So too did defenseman Madison Bowie, but I want to give him his own segment, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on a future episode of Locked On New York Rangers. For right now, we'll talk about Erne. And I do think it's important to keep this thing in perspective because I see some people, you know how it is. It gets announced on Twitter and everybody's rolling their eyes and, saying things like, that's the move that's going to bring us to the Stanley Cup championship. That's not the idea. A lot of players sign PTOs. Were there some better players that got PTOs available for the Rangers? I think there were. So I get the frustration from that perspective. Max Pacioretty PTO with the Leafs, Tyson Barrie PTO with the Flames. The guy I really liked, that I would have really liked to see the Rangers bring in on PTO, was Kyler Yamamoto, but he instead goes to Utah. So bottom line, they didn't get any of those players. They bring in Adam Erne instead. But the Raiders have had at least some success with players on PTOs in recent history. Jimmy Vesey has become, a mainstay in the lineup and a solid fourth-line player, or at least bottom six player for the Rangers. He was on a PTO. So too was Ben Harper, who missed all of last season with an injury. But nevertheless, Harper, the 1 year that he was here, played a decent amount of games for the Rangers, and I thought certainly played fairly well. And he had a PTO with the Wolfpack. It wasn't even with the Rangers. So the Rangers have hit on at least a couple of these players. But as for Erne, 29 years old, left winger, 379 career NHL games, 41 goals, 50 assists, 91 points, and is a minus 39 for his career. He has averaged 12 minutes and 4 seconds of ice time per night, 191 block shots, 880 hits, 81 takeaways against 91 giveaways. He also played 24 games last year, had 1 goal and 1 assist. And through his career, has played for Tampa, Detroit, and Edmonton. So he was actually in his 1 year with Edmonton last year, just 1 win away from the Stanley Cup. Although it is worth mentioning, he played very sparingly with Edmonton in the regular season and did not play in a single playoff game for the Oilers during their run through those 4 rounds last year. But somebody who, if we're being honest, we gotta say this, as a second round pick by Tampa in 2013, number 33 overall, I think it's fair to say that Adam Erne is come up short of career expectations. He's at least had some longevity and play a decent amount of seasons in the league, and we'll see if he's able to make the Rangers. But now having to settle still in his 20s for a PTO, that's where things kind of stand with Erne. I also want to find out a little bit more about him. So I reached out to my very good friends, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley from Locked On Red Wings. Last year he was with Edmonton. Before that, 4 seasons with the Detroit Red Wings. And I just wanted to, get their quick thoughts on him. And they had some fun with this. Brian responded first, and he said, Scotty loved Erne. He is just a dog-type player. He went on an 8-game point streak 1 season, I think. But other than that, he is probably a 4th-line AHL call-up at this point. And then Scotty also weighed in, and he was laughing about this, and he said, Adam Erne has hilarious lore. Definitely a fan favorite 4th-line guy that will randomly be amazing for 2 games. And then Brian also weighed in. I don't remember him being a special teams guy. Those were dark years, so I kind of forgot about it. And I definitely get that. The dark years for the Rangers, I think, were probably from like 98 to like 2004 when they just had all these veteran players who just, I don't know, it just never came together. That's the long and short of it. But yeah, I mean, overall, positive comments from both of them about Adam Erne. We'll see. I don't think that he's going to make this team, but you never know for sure. I also, you never know how these things are going to shake out. I didn't see Ben Harper, becoming an important player on the Rangers a couple of seasons ago. Even Jimmy Vesey wasn't so sure he was going to make the team on his PTO a couple of seasons back, and he was able to do it. We'll see. I don't want to see Adam Erne in a top 9 role. I don't want to see him blocking the path to playing time for a Brian Othmann or a Berard, but he joins what has suddenly become, a fairly crowded fourth line. There's a lot of guys getting for those spots right now between, Vesey, Sam Carrick, Matt Rempe, Adam Edstrom, Johnny Brodzinski, and now you can throw Adam Erne in there as well. So as far as I'm concerned, make the best men win. It's cliche, but competition does tend to make everybody better, and we'll see how it goes. Like I said, not convinced that Ernie's going to make this team. I would probably bet against it, but he should be given a shot just like anybody else. And I don't think there's any harm in just bring in a veteran for a look. It's obviously a very physical player. I know there's some Ranger fans that will certainly like that. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Adam Erne is going to have a really strong training camp and a really good showing in the preseason if he's going to crack this Ranger roster. We shall see. But that'll pretty much do it for today. I did want to mention that we, of course, do have those 2 rookie games, both going to be streamed reportedly on the Philadelphia Flyers website. So log in there, go to their homepage. I don't see it posted yet. I'll check it real quick before we call it a day here because I do want to see if they have anything posted. They've got a couple of articles about the rookie camp, but I don't see like a link as far as like the stream is concerned. But like I said, entirely possible that they'll be adding that to the website a little bit later today. So definitely looking forward to seeing that. Fantasy hockey reminder. This is it for the people that played last year. If you have not reserved your spot, today is the last day to do it. Otherwise, we're going to open the door to some people that have reached out as first-time players and get them into the league instead. So definitely let me know there. And also, do send me your stories from this past season. The Rangers were obviously in the playoffs, and they won 4 games in overtime. If you have a funny, hilarious, heartwarming story, anything that happened, notable, of what you experienced and who you were with and what you were doing when the Rangers won one of those 4 playoff overtime games, definitely send it my way. We'll be reading all your answers on a future episode of Locked On New York Rangers. And another big announcement, we'll end with this. Locked On All NHL podcasts, including Locked On Rangers, going back to 5 episodes a week next week. Definitely looking forward to that. There's no shortage of things to talk about, but that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well at @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's at @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.